that had been weighing on him. His work and business had made him quite wealthy. He worked hard, and he had earned every penny, and he spent the money rewarding himself and his family. But one day he was in church, and they read this scripture text, and he began to wonder about his priorities. The questions loomed before him. Was following Jesus really a priority? Does Jesus' life and ministry shape my priorities? You see, like many of us, what he found was that he'd reduced his spiritual journey to several tasks, weekly, monthly. One that he would check off in a religious box that he thought was important to him. These tasks included worshiping a few times a month, praying before meals, maybe attending a men's Bible study every once in a while. He would give an offering when the sermon moved him, or at holiday services. And he was keen on making sure that he got that tax reduction. He discovered that following Jesus was more about a few tasks, and not about shaping his own priorities. He realized that if Jesus was going to shape his priorities, his life and his family's life would have to change. So he began to pray. Seek guidance. Took the question seriously. Jesus, what would you have me do? And the answer that he heard not only changed his life, but hundreds of others as well. He told me that he makes the same amount of money that he always did, and he always is looking to make more. But his priorities have shifted from rewarding himself and his family to saving the lives of kids in the Philippines. Following Jesus shifted him from a list of tasks to a life that is being shaped by the priorities of Jesus. He has started and funds a school that pulls hundreds of kids off the street, saving both their lives and giving them their future. He then made one of the most real confessions I've ever heard. He told me how hard it was to change, and how he still misses his lavish trips, the latest and greatest technology gadgets, and the lifestyle that he once knew. I must have given him a look that said, dude, how can you miss all that when you're doing such great things? Because he paused, nodded his head and said, I know, but it's still hard. This normal, everyday soccer dad, standing at the sideline watching his daughter, understood the truth that lies at the heart of the scripture today. Money isn't the problem, because money will follow priorities. It doesn't matter how much money you have or that you don't have. What matters are our priorities, because money will always follow the priorities. It always has, it always will. And that's why Jesus spends so much time teaching about priorities. I'm always amazed when the voices in our world shout out that there's not enough money for this project or that project. No, the truth is there is the money. It's just not a priority. If it was the priority, there would be the money. But it's hard, very hard, to allow Jesus to shape our priorities. We are anxious creatures. Does anyone sympathize with the anxiety of the brother who asked Jesus to tell his other brother to give him what is rightfully his? His father has died. His livelihood now depends entirely on his inheritance. And the older brother is going to get the larger share. And the brother pleading with Jesus will receive the smaller. Rabbis were regularly called in to mediate disputes like this one. The brother asks that Jesus represents him in the dispute. But what the brother really wants is not mediation. The brother's anxiousness has caused him to cross a line, one that Jesus interprets as greed or covertness. Jesus is not teaching the brother and the crowd that money is bad. Rather, it's the priority of acquiring more and more possessions with that money. That's the problem. Remember the verse. It's not that money is the root of all evil. It's the love of money. The parable makes several points that are helpful for us today as we seek to follow Jesus. Not as a list of tasks to check off, but sincerely asking Jesus to shape our priorities. The first is that the farmer engages in self-talk. Jesus raises the question, why would this farmer not engage with others in the community and ask him to help figure out his problem? Engaging with others would have given the farmer a different perspective. Perhaps he would have been led to make very different decisions. Far too often we treat our personal finances as deep, dark secrets. However, if we can find one, two, maybe more to talk to, we'll find that even the burden of making these decisions becomes lighter and lighter. Even if it's a personal finance coach whose life has been shaped by Jesus, you'll simply ask the question, how is Jesus shaping my priorities with these decisions? The second point in the parable is that what the farmer considered good personal business practices had detrimental effects for the peasants and tenants who were his neighbors. His decision to hold back his produce would reflect harmfully on the community and in the regional economy. The question for us to consider is, as we ask Jesus to shape our priorities, is this: how can my resources be used for the greater good? This is another good question to ask a group of trusted friends. One last point that the parable brings forth from front and center is that the farmer seeks to secure his future with no regard and no thought of God. It is clear that God has not shaped this farmer's priorities. The farmer's priorities are outlined in the parable: relax, eat, drink, and be merry. What I find really intriguing about this parable is that it starts with a conversation about inheritance, a dispute between two brothers about that. And Jesus ends the parable by asking the question of the farmer, but who will get what you prepared for yourself? The farmer has not even made his own children a priority. The soccer dad was right. It's really hard. To follow Jesus not as a list of tasks for the